and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News on the final day of 2025. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. The second day of hearings on Coupang began this morning at the National Assembly, following Tuesday's 12-hour session. By the end of today's hearing, lawmakers are expected to decide on whether to file perjury charges against Coupang's interim CEO, Harold Rogers. President Lee Jae-myung is set to travel to China for a 4-day state visit starting January 4th at the invitation of President Xi Jinping. It will be the first visit to China by a South Korean president since 2019. Minutes released from the U.S. Federal Reserve's latest policy meeting earlier this month revealed that officials were split over the December rate cut. While most officials supported the rate cut, some officials warned that progress toward the Fed's 2% inflation goal may have stalled. We begin this morning with the second day of hearings on the Coupang data leak, which kicked off this morning after the first day ended past 9 p.m. yesterday. The discussions continue today amid claims and counterclaims over Coupang's meeting with the suspect behind the leak. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin starts us off.
The National Assembly has entered the second day of hearings on the data breach scandal involving e-commerce giant Coupang. The Science and Technology Committee reconvened a hearing on Wednesday morning with several issues on the agenda, including the data leak, as well as accusations of unfair business practices and poor labor conditions. The hearing is being held jointly with 6 other committees. Key figures from Coupang, including founder and chairman Kim Bum-seok, have been absent from the hearings, which sparked sharp criticism from lawmakers. By the end of the hearing, the session is also to decide on whether to file charges of perjury against Coupang's interim CEO, Harold Rogers. Rogers stated on Tuesday that the company was instructed by the National Intelligence Service to meet with the suspect behind the data leak. However, the NIS denied these claims and stated that they had never issued such directives to Coupang, but rather had advised the company to make its own decision regarding the matter. While expressing its intention to pursue charges against Rogers' testimony, the NIS also said that they had only requested materials from Coupang and had no authority to issue any commands or orders to the company. Also in the hearing, the chairman of the Korea Trade Commission criticized Coupang for its handling of the data breach.
The Fair Trade Commission will closely monitor not only the cases currently under review, but also the company's social responsibility going forward.
The hearings are set to continue as lawmakers further scrutinize the repercussions of the data breach and discuss potential regulatory changes to prevent similar incidents in the future. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung will travel to China for a 4-day state visit next month. The Blue House announced on Tuesday that the president will depart for Beijing on January 4th at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. The leaders will hold a summit followed by a state dinner. The Seoul-Beijing relationship, supply chains, and the digital economy are likely to top the agenda. President Lee also plans to visit Shanghai for a business event, among others. It will be his first trip to China since taking office, and the two leaders last met in November in South Korea's Gyeongju on the sidelines of the APEC leaders meeting. It will be the first visit to China by a South Korean president in 6 years, since 2019. And President Lee Jae-myung unveiled the golden key to the White House he received from U.S. President Donald Trump, as well as hopes for a stronger alliance. Posting photos on his social media account on Tuesday, he thanked his U.S. counterpart for friendship and said he looks forward to an even stronger Korea-U.S. alliance, unlocked by the golden key. In the post, he also jokingly asked whether he might use the key to let himself in if Trump happens to be away when he visits the White House next time. Trump presented Yi with the last golden key in return for the replica of an ancient golden crown that Yi gifted Trump in October. Only 5 have received the key, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Meanwhile, Russia's foreign ministry says it has exchanged New Year's gifts with North Korea's Kim Yo-jong, highlighting the deepening partnership between Moscow and Pyongyang. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said Tuesday via Telegram that she received a gift from the sister of North Korea leader Kim Jong-un delivered through North Korea's ambassador to Russia. Zakharova says she sent Kim a portrait painted by prominent Russian artist Nika Savrovnov, describing the artwork as capturing both tenderness and femininity alongside strength and determination. The gift exchange comes as Russia and North Korea continue to strengthen ties following a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement signed during Vladimir Putin's summit with Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang in June 2024. Over in the United States, minutes from the Federal Reserve December meeting released on Tuesday show officials agreed to cut interest rates only after an intense and finely balanced debate over the risks facing the U.S. economy. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has released minutes from its December policy meeting on Tuesday, showing officials were more divided on interest rates than the final vote suggested. At the meeting, which took place on December 9th and 10th, the Federal Open Market Committee approved a quarter-point rate cut by a 9-3 vote, which marked the most dissenters since 2019. The move lowered the benchmark federal funds rate to a range of 3.5 to 3.75%. While most officials said further rate cuts would be appropriate if inflation continues to ease, the minutes show rising caution. Several policymakers argued rates should remain unchanged for a period after the December cut, and some who supported the move said the decision was finely balanced. Officials said the economy is growing at a moderate pace, but they see downside risks to employment and upside risks to inflation. The meeting also included updated economic projections, indicating one rate cut in 2026 and another in 2027, which would bring rates closer to 3%, a level considered neutral for growth. Some officials warned progress toward the Fed's 2% inflation goal may have stalled, while noting that tariffs under U.S. President Donald Trump are adding to inflation in the short term, but are expected to fade by 2026. According to recent data, hiring remains slow without a surge in layoffs. Inflation is easing, but still above target, and economic growth remains strong. However, policymakers cautioned that recent figures may be distorted by data delays linked to the government shutdown. Markets expect the FOMC to keep rates unchanged in the near term, as Fed officials offered little guidance during the holiday period and signaled caution heading into the new year. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's stock market saw a dramatic turnaround this year. After falling about 10% last year, the latest report shows the Kospi has recorded the world's highest gains this year. With the once seemingly far-fetched milestone of 4,000 points now firmly within reach, analysts say the benchmark index could climb as high as 5,500 points in 2026. For more on this, we're joined today by Kim Min-gyun, professor at Seogang Business School. Professor Kim, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So shares of South Korea's two largest companies by market cap, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, they hit new record highs this year. What's driving the current semiconductor boom cycle, and how would you assess the overall performance of the Korean stock market this year?
Well, Korean stock market, of course, we're starting with the political risk. As you know, the political risk for the Korean government was gone. And after President Lee Jae-myung government is step up, well, he trying to boost the stock market by establishing investors-friendly policies. And then, of course, they call the AI bubble, but there are many needs for the HBM and the semiconductor chips. So our two main companies like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, well, the needs for the basically the demand for the semiconductor chips is sky high rocketing. So basically, well, it's gonna be reflected in our stock market. So that's why they are driving the force for the boosting of our Kospi.
I see, and the government is now urging Korean investors who have been investing in U.S. markets to shift their focus back to domestic stocks by rolling out measures like tax incentives. What's your take on this, and are we seeing signs of investors returning to the Kospi?
I think it's kind of partially effective since like we have the tax benefits for returning to the Korean market. But I think we're gonna have focus on the fundamentals of the Kospi market and of course the Korean economy situation. Well, of course the two like main players like Samsung and SK Hynix, well, they are driving the Kospi market, and of course, well, the rising up of those Kospi market index, of course, that they're trying to attract more investors, especially from the Korean investors from the who invest the money to the U.S. market. I think it's kind of policy is working too. Tax benefits, of course, we're trying to set up more policies for friendly investors. Policies, of course. So I think, well, even though it's still working, but I think it's depending on the fundamentals of the Korean economic growth to attract more Korean investors, of course.
I see. And what the Korean government has also been working on is attracting more foreign investors to the Korean stock market. How effective has these efforts been so far?
Well, I think it's kind of a lot of factors that can attract more foreign investors, especially for the exchange rate and our Korean fundamentals for the economic situation, and of course that the HBM like semiconductor companies, of course, there are needs for like next years. But the problem is that, well, if you look at the projections for the Korea's economy, as well as the including the semiconductor industry and as well as automobiles and other batteries or other like chemicals and the steels and all the main industry that trying to boost up our Korean economy is not doing very well. So what our trying to do, of course, we're trying to focusing on the growth of the economy as well as including like semiconductors and steels and any other industry that can, depending on the growth of the Korean economy.
Right. And Professor Kim, before I let you go, what's your outlook for the Korean stock market next year? You know, some analysts say the Kospi could climb above 5,500 points. How realistic do you think that is?
Well, I think it's kind of feasible numbers that we're trying to reach, but I think it's kind of a bit too optimistic for like 5,500 Kospi points. But well, I think it's possible since like we trying to stimulate the market and we're gonna focus on all the policies for trying to boost the economy, and we're trying to working on the fundamentals like employment rate and other exports and import, of course, and we also looking at the exchange rate, of course, between our won and dollar values, of course, and the government is trying to set up those kind of all the policies, and of course, our semiconductor two companies are doing very well. I think it's kind of a projection that they are doing very well in next year too, in 2026. So I think it's kind of possible, but trying to look for those kind of fundamentals and look for those kind of growth. And we're also going to look for those kind of other industry, like especially for we talk about the K-pop cultures and those kind of service industry and the main the steels and of course the automobile industry. Well, we also going to look at those kind of industry that can generate so kind of economic growth for the next year, so that we can have some good vision for the Korean stock market in 2026.
Right, a lot to look forward to. We'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Kim, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
From art exhibitions to film, creative content is taking a larger role in Korea-France relations as the space for cultural exchanges continues to expand ahead of the 140th anniversary of bilateral relations between the two nations. Our Oh Soo-young has this report.
Capturing colour and creative energy through art and motion, Korea-France relations continue to broaden through cultural exchange. a contemporary art exhibition in Paris, is bringing the works of 34 Korean artists, an eclectic selection from leading galleries and institutions in both countries. The theme is Colors of Korea, incorporating 오방색, the traditional 5 cardinal colors, among a variety of iconic color tones.
This work behind me is by the late artist Kim Chang-yeol. He's very well known as the water drop artist. But this work was created in the early years of his career, after he had been active in New York and then moved to Paris. So through this exhibition, even visitors who are not very familiar with Korean contemporary art come in and take the time to look at the artists' lives and their artistic practices.
As such, the exhibition aims to build resonance and connection.
French audiences tend to have a very high level of interest in culture, not only in their own, but other cultures as well. Not only young French people, but also those in their 30s and 40s. And even those in their 50s and older now have a much higher level of awareness of Korea. As a result, interest in Korean culture has grown even further. And this is not limited to one specific field, but appears as a broader overall trend.
The exhibition is one of several programs run by the Korean Culture Center in Paris ahead of the 140th anniversary of diplomatic ties. Film screenings and performances organized by the center also offer ways to engage in Korean contemporary culture. In recent years, Korean cinema and content have gained steady attention from French critics and audiences, with the growth of streaming and online video platforms. Guillaume Legours, who has developed some of France's largest productions, describes the impact.
Completely unique. I mean, Parasite, the movie Parasite.
Right.
Wow, it was something so new. It was very audacious, the direction, that's for the book, the scenario, and the actors were amazing. So Squid Game is another good example, and I could use the same terms about the success of this specific kind of movie and series.
Legours says the appeal reflects the shared passionate temperament of Koreans and French, and their love for music and drama.
From my experience, we are quite close from France to Korea. I would say that French culture is closer to Korea than many other countries. Even in Asia, I used to say that the Koreans are like the Latin of Europe.
He is hoping to bring more popular Korean content to the French market and stage live French performances in Korea. Legours' revival of the hit musical Le Roi Soleil is completely sold out, with discussions underway about touring in Asia, including Korea.
Well, I'm in discussion now with some producer. We have a partner in Seoul. We did Mozart with him a while ago, and we would like to bring Molière, which was a big success in France and touring now in China. Of course, Le Roi Soleil. I mean, to establish a bridge. And that's also why, that's what I was telling you, I'm really thinking that the French market, well, European market in general, but French market specifically, is really ready to welcome Korean cultural projects.
Such collaborations are set to deepen in 2026 as part of a year of bilateral exchange.
Officials say more than 100 events have been scheduled to celebrate the 140-year milestone, with live performances, exhibitions and film festivals being staged across both countries. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Paris.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Winter holiday travel between the UK and continental Europe was disrupted on Tuesday due to a power failure in the Channel Tunnel. Eurostar cancelled trains linking London with Paris, Brussels and Amsterdam before partially resuming services later on Tuesday after the tunnel reopened in limited capacity. Eurostar warned the power fault was still ongoing and told passengers to postpone trips because severe delays and last-minute cancellations remained possible. Tunnel operator GetLink said repairs were underway and traffic was slowly being restored in both directions. It said it saw no sign of foul play or sabotage. The grandchild of former U.S. President John F. Kennedy, environmental journalist Tatiana Schlossberg, has died at the age of 35 after she was diagnosed with leukemia last year. A family statement announcing her death was posted on Tuesday by the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation. It did not disclose the cause of her death. Schlossberg wrote that doctors diagnosed her with acute myeloid leukemia in May 2024 after a high white blood cell count was noticed while she was in the hospital for the birth of her second child. In a recent essay in The New Yorker, she described chemotherapy, 2 stem cell transplants, and clinical trials, and criticized policies backed by her relative, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. In Germany, a daring bank heist has left police scrambling for answers and around 2,700 customers out of pocket. Authorities in the city of Gelsenkirchen say thieves drilled through the vault wall of Sparkasse Bank early Monday, stealing property worth between 12 and 106 million US dollars. A fire alarm alerted officers around 4 a.m. on Monday, leading them to discover a massive hole in the basement wall of the branch and the vault ransacked. Witnesses reported seeing men loading large bags into a vehicle, but the suspects remain at large as investigators combed through forensic evidence from the scene. New York City is ramping up security ahead of its Times Square New Year's Eve celebration. At a press conference in Times Square on Tuesday, Mayor Eric Adams said authorities had no specific or credible threats tied to the event, but declared it a heightened threat environment and urged the public to report anything suspicious. Security teams will implement secondary screenings inside crowd pens to ensure the safety of the millions of expected attendees. A new historic twist was also revealed, a second dropping of the Constellation Ball. The ball will drop at midnight to ring in the new year and again in July 2026 to mark America's 250th anniversary.
On this final day of 2025, cold wave has settled in with icy winds dragging down feels-like temperatures. Cold wave alerts are being issued across Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces today. Meanwhile, dry weather advisory remains in place along the east coast and parts of Gyeongsang-Namdo provinces. But with that continuing strong winds, please, fire safety is a must. And this afternoon, Seoul stays below freezing all day, topping out at -3 degrees Celsius. Daegu only makes it to 2 degrees under bright skies in most parts of Korea. Many of you may be planning to watch the last sunset of the year or the first sunrise of the new year. Good news, most inland areas will stay clear. And here in Seoul, the final sunset of the year will be at 5:23 p.m. But when you are heading out, be sure to bundle up well. On New Year's Day, morning starts at -11 degrees Celsius here in Seoul, and severe cold wave continues through Saturday morning. Meanwhile, there could be heavy snow in parts of Jeollado and on Jeju Island, so please take extra care.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.